नमस्कार। चुनाव के इस खास शो रणभूमि में आपका स्वागत है। मैं हूं विशाल दहिया। देश में जब भी घूमने जाने का प्लान होता है तो केरल का जिक्र आता है। केरल की खासियत है कि यहाँ किसी भी मौसम में घूमने जाया जा सकता है। केरल की खूबसूरती को लेकर इसे गॉड्स ऑन कंट्री भी कहा जाता है। उसके कई ठोस कारण भी हैं। नारियल, बैकवाटर संस्कृति और परंपराओं का गढ़ इस प्रदेश को माना जाता है। लेकिन इन दिनों केरल में जहां भी आप जाएंगे, हर तरफ आपको फिजा में राजनीति ही राजनीति दिखाई देगी। कारण है केरल में विधानसभा चुनाव। केरल विधानसभा चुनाव में लेफ्ट पार्टियों की अगुवाई वाली एलडीएफ यानी कि लेफ्ट डेमोक्रेटिक फ्रंट और कांग्रेस के नेतृत्व वाले यूडीएफ यानी कि यूनाइटेड डेमोक्रेटिक फ्रंट के बीच मुकाबला है। केरल में हर 5 साल में सत्ता परिवर्तन की परंपरा सालों से चली आ रही है। ऐसे में सत्ताधारी एलडीएफ इस बार अपनी जीत के साथ केरल की सियासत में इस परंपरा को तोड़ने की कोशिश में है। वहीं सत्ता परिवर्तन की परंपरा को दोहराने के लिए कांग्रेस पूरी तरह ताकत लगा रही है। केरल का चुनाव राहुल गांधी के लिए भी काफी अहम माना जा रहा है, क्योंकि राहुल गांधी केरल के वायनाड से सांसद भी हैं। सीपीआईएम के नेतृत्व वाली एलडीएफ और कांग्रेस के नेतृत्व वाले यूडीएफ ने अलग अलग कार्यकालों में राज्य में 3 दशक तक शासन किया है। वहीं बात अगर बीजेपी की करें तो राज्य में इस बार बीजेपी ने भी पूरी ताकत चुनावी मैदान में झोंक दी है। राज्य में बीजेपी का जनाधार लगातार बढ़ रहा है। बीजेपी का केरल में वोट प्रतिशत में इजाफा हुआ है। स्थानीय निकाय चुनाव में पार्टी ने केरल की जनता के बीच अपनी पैठ को बढ़ाया है और केरल विधानसभा चुनाव में 140 सीटों पर 6 अप्रैल को वोटिंग होनी है। ऐसे में एलडीएफ और यूडीएफ के साथ साथ बीजेपी ने भी अपनी पूरी ताकत झोंक रखी है। केरल में 1980 के बाद से सत्ता पर काबिज होने के बाद किसी भी राजनीतिक दल या गठबंधन को लगातार दोबारा जीत नहीं मिली है। एक तरह से यहां हर 5 साल बाद सत्ता परिवर्तन हुआ है। क्या कुछ बन रही है इस बार के चुनाव में तस्वीर? क्या है वो मुद्दे और कौन सी पार्टी के तरकश में चुनाव जीतने के लिए कौन कौन से वो तीर हैं जिनसे वो मतदाताओं को लुभाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं? अगले आधे घंटे में हम इन्हीं सब बातों पर चर्चा करेंगे और इस सब चर्चा के लिए हमारे साथ 2 खास मेहमान भी मौजूद हैं। आइए मैं उनसे आपको मिलवा देता हूं। विनोद नेरुमुंदी इस वक्त हमारे साथ जुड़ रहे हैं, वरिष्ठ पत्रकार हैं, कोच्चि से जुड़ रहे हैं केरल में। केवी प्रसाद जी हमारे साथ जुड़ रहे हैं, वरिष्ठ पत्रकार हैं, दिल्ली से हमारे साथ हैं। केवी प्रसाद जी, आपसे शुरुआत करना चाहूँगा। सबसे पहले अगर केरल की राजनीति की बात करें और राजनीतिक परिदृश्य की बात करें तो जिस तरह से मैंने बताया कि हर 5 साल में यह सत्ता परिवर्तन होता है और इस बार जो गठजोड़ दिखाई दे रहा है, मैदान पर जो रणनीति दिखाई दे रही है, जिस तरह की जिसे कहा जाए चुनावी गहमा गहमी दिखाई दे रही है, आपको लगता है कि इस बार भी वो परिवर्तन हर 5 साल बाद जो चल रहा है वो देखने को मिल सकता है या वो परिवर्तन इतना आसान नहीं होगा?
विशाल जी, आपने जो बात कही बहुत सही है। सारे लोग यही सोच रहे हैं कि क्या होगा, क्योंकि लेकिन एक जरूर ध्यान रखिए, जो आपने सत्ता परिवर्तन या हस्तांतरण होता रहा है हर 5 साल बाद, उसके पीछे अगर आप देखें तो वोट फीसदी 1 से 1.5% या 2% के बीच में वोट, जब वोट जो है यूडीएफ की तरफ से एलडीएफ या एलडीएफ से यूएसपीएफ जब हो जाता है तो सत्ता अपने आप परिवर्तन होता है। ऐसा पिछले कुछ सालों में देखा गया है। जहां सवाल, अब 2 चीजें यहाँ फैक्टर तो देखनी चाहिएगी। एक तो ये है कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने बड़ी जोर लगाई है, जैसे आपने खुद अपने ओपनिंग वक्तव्य में बात कही है, तो उसका परिणाम क्या होगा, वो किसके वोट ज्यादा निकाल पाएगी, जिसके वोट निकालने से कौन से दल को, ये सत्तारूढ़ गठबंधन को या विपक्षी गठबंधन को नुकसान हो या नफा हो या नुकसान हो, ये एक आंकलन की बात है। ये रहा सवाल एलडीएफ का, एलडीएफ पूरी कोशिश कर रही है कि फिर से सत्ता में बने रहे, जो कि पिछले 40 साल में रिकॉर्ड है, जैसे आपने खुद भी बताया, ऐसा कभी हुआ नहीं है। लेकिन अगर देखें, मेरे को थोड़ा सा अगर हम ध्यान अपने आप को पीछे करें, वीएस अच्युतानंदन की जब सरकार थी और वो जब चुनाव में उतरे फिर से, और हालांकि उस वक्त पार्टी के अंदर भी एक दिक्कत थी, उनको इतने उस उम्र में उतारना नहीं, उस वक्त काफी जोर लगा के वाम दलों की सीटें बहुत अच्छी निकली थी और लग रहा था लोगों की शायद सत्ता की तरफ बढ़ जाएंगे। तो ऐसा नहीं है कि बिल्कुल ही नहीं हुआ, लेकिन हाँ ये जरूर है कि सत्ता नहीं पहुंच पाए। वो गर्मागर्मी अभी भी मौजूद है। मुकाबला बेसिकली जो, जैसे आपने कहा, एलडीएफ और यूडीएफ के बीच में है। भारतीय जनता पार्टी अपना वर्चस्व बढ़ाए जा रही है और बढ़ा रही है पिछले कुछ चुनाव के तहत।
जी बिल्कुल. Let me also bring in Mr. Nitin Mundi here. Mr. Nitin Mundi, if you're looking at this aspect of the power shifting to either LDF or UDF every 5 years, and this time around, if you're looking at the contest, and as Mr. Prasad is also pointing out, BJP is also a very important factor in the state in these elections. So how do you analyze the overall scenario so far? The campaigning has been very intense there. The star campaigners of all the political parties are on the ground. Not many days to go before the voters get their chance to decide as to who will rule the state for next 5 years.
See, Mr. Prasad has rightly pointed out that there is just a shift of 1% or 2% votes decide the outcome of the elections. So it's a very serious battle that is taking place here. All the national figures have come down. Amit Shah has come. Prime Minister Modi himself has come. Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi, and Sitaram Yechuri. All leaders have come. The campaigning has gained all heat and bustle. Right? It's going on. So the problem with the election this time is that LDF has unleashed a very systematic, I would call it propaganda, that it is going to retain power. So it has reached every nook and corner, and it has been professionally orchestrated in a very systematic manner. So the UDF is a bit down because the opinion polls have also predicted that the LDF is going to retain power, which is against the normal pattern that has been occurring for quite a long time, for past 40 years, 4 decades. So everybody is keenly looking into the election. The major factor, of course, major foray is by BJP right now by pitting E. Sridharan as the candidate in Palakkad, and also pitting its state president in 2 constituencies for the first time. That is in Manjeshwaram and Konni. So BJP is seriously into the battle. So two fronts cannot take BJP lightly this time. They are ready to win at least in four constituencies in this election. Especially in Trivandrum district, which has 14 constituencies. I think it has 14 constituencies. Yeah, it has 14 constituencies. They are seriously into a battle in Trivandrum constituency, where initially it made major inroads in its beginning itself. It's a very serious battle going on. Then there are fringe elements like 2020 there are a lot of fringe elements in like 2020 in Ernakulam. Then the shift of Kerala Congress Mani to the LDF. These are all going to play a very serious role. As he said, 1 or 2% of votes, shift in votes, decide the outcome of the election. So what damage these elements and what role BJP will play in this election? So at least there is a very serious talk that they are going to gain at least 3, and there is a chance of 4th constituency also. So in Trivandrum, we have seen that BJP made inroads into the vote base of LDF also. So it can damage both LDF and UDF. So it has to be seen how it turns out to be.
Okay, definitely. It looks like it's a very, very close fight there, as it has been in terms of, if you're looking at the margin of a win for the winning sides traditionally, as well as both of you are pointing out. Let's also look at Mr. Nitin Mundi. I'll start with you, since you mentioned these smaller players as well, and how crucial a role the BJP might also play this time around in the overall, scenario of who might end up winning the state out there. For our viewers' benefit, if you could sort of summarize the lineup there, because we're looking at 3 major elements. One, obviously, is the Congress-led UDF, which has been in the opposition for 5 years, and the CPM-led LDF, which has been in the power for last 5 years, and the BJP also seemingly has aligned with BDJS and some more smaller parties which you're talking about. So who is on which side, and how significant are they placed in that alliance?
UDF comprises Congress, IUML, Janata Dal. UDF comprises Congress, IUML, Kerala Congress, Joseph Faction, RSPB, and there's a few insignificant elements also. I mean, in LDF, the major constituencies CPM and CPI. Next is CPI. Then comes Kerala Congress Mani faction, who shifted loyalty. Mani's sons, Jose K. Mani, shifted loyalty to LDF. Major parties are Janata Dal has NCP. These are the major combinations in LDF. When it comes to BJP, it is major parties are BJP and BDJS. Then other are very small parties, not worth mentioning it basically. Then what I was talking about is there are in Ernakulam district, my native district, there is a new entrant into a serious entrant into the election is 2020. So they are seriously into the election. They rule a panchayat, and it has been they touted it as a model panchayat. Then there are, I mean, in other independents are also in fray. Then the V4 People Party. These are the major constituents in the election.
Okay. Mr. Prasad, how do you look at this lineup of alliance partners on either sides, and obviously BJP as well as the third force, and the kind of alliances it has been able to bring in, other like-minded organization it has been able to bring in with itself. The kind of significance here, which I'm trying to identify, is which were these, which of these players were really crucial in the previous elections for both the UDF and LDF as well, and how are they faring this time around?
Well, I think majority of lineup has remained constant in the sense, except for, as my colleague, panelist has mentioned very correctly, the shifting over of Jose Kerala Congress Mani group about 6 months before. If you remember, he was a member of Rajya Sabha. He resigned and then shifted. So this was very significant to the extent. Well, there was local politics behind all that move is what we hear. But then that politics is all about that. And who gains this? His moving to left camp was seen as some kind of a victory for left in pockets in which the Kerala Congress Mani holds. If you look at the other side too, it is not that even for the BJP or for the LDF, there have been camps which have shifted here and there. For instance, if you remember, there was PC Thomas group which was aligned with the NDA for a pretty long time. Once again, it has been moved out. There were issues with the BJDS vis-a-vis BJP at the time of seat sharing and all that. So there were issues that keep cropping up, the SNDP. So there are these things, but in politics and eventually when it comes to elections, it's see how you actually coalesce all these forces together. For instance, the biggest and the starkest contrast you would find, it's very obvious when in Bengal, the Congress and CPIM are contesting together, and they are at each other's opposition in Kerala. But within that too, if you notice, the RSP and Forward Bloc are members in the left front government, left front in West Bengal, but on this side of the fence in Kerala. So the tactics change according to requirements. So and how much you have to convince people that why you are on one side of the political alignment in one state and several kilometers or thousands of kilometers away you are taking it, because this is what the BJP is also trying to find out from people and telling people, look. So I think that also clears the pitch. But Kerala electorate has always shown that they have been very informed, and they are the most literate state in this country. So the level of discerningness is how they are very discerning voters, and I'm sure that comes into play, and that's why the margins are always very tight.
Okay, okay, that indeed is one of the angles there, and we'll have to wait and watch as to what happens on the day of polling. Let's not forget that Kerala is going to poll in a single phase, and also let's now look at the other very important aspect, and that is the promises made by these political parties. We've understood the lineup, we've understood the history as well, and all big political parties in Kerala have released their manifestos wherein they have outlined their priorities and future course of action as well. The Congress-led UDF alliance is looking to unseat the Left Democratic Front from power this time, as our panelists also pointed out, and has accordingly promised a number of things in its manifesto, reaching out to the vast majority of women voters. The front, that is the UDF, has assured a 2-year age relaxation for mothers appearing for exams for government jobs. The UDF manifesto also promises to create a Ministry of Happiness in Kerala. Now, the ruling LDF manifesto makes several welfare promises, mainly focusing on employment for Kerala's youth, as well as rehabilitation of NRIs who have returned to the state due to pandemic. This time, both the fronts face a challenge from Bharatiya Janata Party, which is obviously hoping to raise its vote share and form a government in the southern state. Now, the BJP's manifesto focuses on Kerala's holistic development with provision for jobs, terror and hunger-free state out there. So these are the key promises which are coming in from 3 key players, the UDF, the LDF and Bharatiya Janata Party there. Let's try and understand there. I'd like to start with you, Mr. Nedum Mundi. If we do a sort of a cursory review of these manifestos, there are 2-3 factors which really come out alive, and that is in terms of issues, if you want to focus. One, obviously, is the issue of unemployment. Jobs is one thing which all these players are promising. And then, looks like all of them seemingly are focusing on different sections of the society, specifically women and youth.
Yeah, manifestos, they were released much earlier. And I think manifestos, both manifestos promised a lot, promised to the moon, in fact. As I strongly feel Kerala voters, they scan the manifesto and they don't attach much importance to the promises in the manifesto. So the debate is now in the political domain. So the campaign is now the opposition. The major issue came up during the campaign right now is the major issue that double voting, voters, I mean, duplicate voters.
Bogus voters.
A lot of duplicate voters. I mean, one voter has vote in this constituency, 2 votes in the same constituency, and in another constituency also he has vote. The opposition leader himself said that 4.5 lakh such duplicate voters are there in the this electoral roll. Okay. And the commission itself has identified that there are 36,000 duplicate duping voters. So that has become a major issue for the opposition, and the CPM is almost silent on this aspect. They are not charging anything like that. So their credentials are in doubt. But the BJP also is not seriously into such issues. So that's such a political campaigning. Actually, it is shifted from the manifesto side to, of course, the manifestos. The freebies distributed through the public distribution system. The LDF is, and again that the freebies distributed through the kit in the LDF system. Now the UDF has identified its danger and has systematically come out with social media campaigns targeting how this kit has come to. It is not a freebie from Pinarayi Vijayan. It is the exchequer's money that is being used, and how we are being trapped in the debt that is mounting every day. Like that, the UDF is campaigning strongly in its political side. So it's like that the campaigning is right now going on.
Okay, okay. Mr. Prasad, your view there on the issues, and if you're looking at there, looks like, the issue of unemployment and obviously, the focus on women and youth is something which is prominently visible in the party manifestos, but on the ground, political allegations, as Mr. Nedumudi was also pointing out, there's one other issue, that is the issue of corruption. But when we're talking about these promises and these, freebies as well, Mr. Nedumudi also referred to that. That is the issue of, state exchequer. Not enough money out there for whosoever wins the election to go ahead and, fulfill all those promises, perhaps, of, all kind of freebies which are being promised.
Yeah, Vishal, I think this is one of the major issues, not for just this election, but this is something which has been a systematic problem with our electoral systems. And increasingly, we see, whether it is neighboring Tamil Nadu or either Kerala or other parts of the country, that political parties offer a majority of what they think they can do for the people, trying to reach out to different sections and different segments of the society. Be it a laptop, or call it a mobile phone, or a cycle, or here, or in neighboring Tamil Nadu, you offer ranges from mixers to grinders to whatnot. So eventually, there is nothing called a free lunch, as they say. Somebody has to pay for it. So it has to come from, and if a government of the day takes up. In fact, if you notice that many of these welfare schemes, when they began on such a scheme, but eventually got embedded into the social welfare schemes of various state governments. To look at the simplest thing, the rice welfare scheme, when it began way back in the late 60s and much later in 80s in Andhra, political parties scoffed at the idea, but very quickly they lapped up. Everybody has lapped it up into it, whether it is free electricity. If you notice, there's many states that offer free electricity to farmers.
Indeed.
Eventually, these go on to add on to the budgets of the state government, adding to the burden because the revenues are so much only, and but you have to spend it having committed it. Now, this is something where a systemic reforms, all political parties will have to look at it. That is why we have just to digress, is the financial budget management and the responsible budgets and all that we are talking about. But coming back to this is political, this is election time, and a lot of our promises are made, and those who make the cut try and fulfill as many they can from within the constraints. So these are there. The economists are always warning against such freebies. In fact, if you remember in 2013 or so, there was a petition to the Election Commission in the Supreme Court, and following that, there was a direction to the Election Commission. And the Election Commission came up with an amendment into the Model Code of Conduct in what can be promised in the manifestos. But then a Model Code of Conduct is just an agreement, between an honorable agreement between parties. It is not legally enforceable document. You have to play by the spirit of the game. That's what they expect. But then these are issues that require systematic and long-term address, both by the electorate themselves, because how much we have to deal with this. It's something which is happening election after election, state after state.
Indeed, indeed. And it's not only limited to any one particular state, as you're pointing out, Mr. Prasad. And this is a larger issue which will have to be dealt with separately. But there it is. Thank you so much, Mr. Prasad, as well as Mr. Nedumudi, for sharing your views and insights on the ongoing electoral battle in the state of Kerala. All parties there seemingly are leaving no stone unturned in trying to woo the voters. We'll have to wait and watch till the polling day as to how discernible are going to be the voters of Kerala in turning up in large numbers to cast their vote. And obviously the result would be known on 2nd of May along with other state assembly elections as well. We'll come back again tomorrow with a different aspect of these ongoing state assembly elections. Till then, keep watching. Thank you.